all so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Deanna Yadollahi. I wrote a paper called Deanna, Parvin, Yadollahi's Auto-ethnography of Ableism, Intersectional Disablism, Racism, Colonialism, Imperialism, and Patriarchy. And I actually have the full paper complete, so I will just be reading it directly. In this paper, I will introduce myself and my relationship to disability justice. Then I will discuss my auto-ethnographic research methods and findings and discuss related literature. Then I will discuss the themes of ableism, intersectional disablism, racism, colonialism, imperialism, and patriarchy, and how they relate to disability justice, critical disability studies and education, and radical love. I will end with brief recommendations. This paper is non-traditional, which better aligns with my access needs and values than traditional academic research might. One goal of this written work is to model the future I dream. Such modeling often involves questioning everything we have been trained or otherwise conditioned to believe, whether in the name of white supremacist and colonial thought, or as a byproduct of mostly unintentional white supremacy culture present in dominant activists and quote unquote diversity, equity, inclusion spaces. This particular project of reimagining involves my attempt to communicate in plain language, but I do experience conflicting access realities when attempting to communicate concisely, and will likely take you on a journey. Are you ready? My intention here is to share about my own experiences. Many other individuals have also contributed access to their similar experiences, for example, Alice Wong, 2020. I hope that you will engage with their work as well, much of which is not academically published, but rather exists in informal conversations on social media or within personal blogs. For example, see me and Lucas's blog, Leaving Evidence, and at Widgets and Fries on social media, and the Rooted in Rights blog. I want to give a content warning. I will be talking about intimate parts of my life, which include intergenerational trauma, brief mentions of sexual violence and genocide, ableism, and brief mentions of medical racism and gaslighting. I will also be discussing disability justice, critical disability studies and education, and radical love. There are some people who need to learn from this paper who never will. In some cases, for reasons that I hope this paper will expose. The project of sharing stories requires emotional labor. For some, it's not worth the pain of reliving. For me, even though this project has involved months of unhealthy avoidance that affected everything else in my life, I am constantly being reminded that telling my story is a matter of survival and radical love. From 2000 defines radical love as the combination of respect, responsibility, knowledge, and care. You're reading my story and becoming committed to doing something based on what you learned from it. You can help prevent others from having to go through what I went through and continue to go through. You might even find that you identify with this story based on your own experiences, which many others go through. I do not regret my experiences because they gave me purpose and direction for what I will do with the rest of my this body mind's visit in this world. Header: Methods for Auto-ethnography. For my research for this paper, I used the method of auto-ethnography. Using auto-ethnography for disability studies research can be particularly constructive and accessible. I designed my auto-ethnographic research project to focus on my personal experiences in school settings and school-related family experiences. I collected qualitative data, including writing reflections about and memories of my time in K through 12 school settings, as well as looking over artifacts from my time in school. I use disability justice and disability studies to understand and analyze my data. Using my experiences as data to analyze, I performed qualitative data analysis and coded my auto-ethnographic data. I found that my experiences related to the following themes: ableism, intersectional disablism, colonialism, imperialism, Islamophobia, and patriarchy as related to disability justice, critical disability studies, and radical love. Header. Context is important, so let's start before the beginning of my story. Before meeting each other, my parents had migrated to the United States from their birth countries. They both believed that the United States would provide safety, opportunity, and overall a better life. My mother and her Tolteca Mexican family came from Guadalajara, Mexico. Much of what I hoped to connect with from cultures of my ancestral past seems to have been lost over time. I don't even have the right language to explain who the Tolteca people were because there are few reliable records of them, their society, and their culture. Furthermore, the erasure, assimilation, and other forms of silencing in Western bodies of knowledge makes it such that I cannot trust the minimal information that is provided online. But even this information points to no continuation of the Tolteca language. This is the very nature of heritage, of language heritage. Instead, I learned through my mother that indigenous people in Mexico became appropriated by colonial forces as mestizos, which she explains as the mixture of the Spanish and the Indians. Everything was erased because, according to my mother's oral history, quote, Indians were forced to become Catholic, to speak only Spanish, were raped, were killed, and so their people disappeared, end quote. My grandfather grew up as a mestizo. The only thing that was left for him from pre-colonial times is having participated as a child in indigenous dances, which still continue today. When my mom was in school in Guadalajara, there were only two types of students, quote, los burros y los aplicados, end quote, meaning, quote, the donkeys and the smart ones, end quote. Teachers would even separate students in rows of who was, quote unquote, high achieving and who was not. If students didn't bring their homework, they were hit with a metal ruler. If students had a hard time sitting in their seats and staying quiet during class, they had to stand in front of the class and for an hour wearing what we know in English now as a dunce hat. In the late 1970s, my dad and his brother, both teenagers at the time, left Iran. Due to the highly competitive nature of admissions to educational institutions in Iran, going abroad was their best chance to have access to a good quality education. They had planned to return to Iran after completing their studies, but became unable to due to an 8-year war between Iran and Iraq. They would likely have been drafted into the military had they returned when originally planned. Thus, they were in the United States, separated from their entire family, and unable to receive financial support from their family due to financial restrictions brought on by the Iranian government due to the war being between Iran and Iraq. My father ended up being unable to visit his family for a total of 14 years. When my parents met, they used translation books to communicate. My mom was learning English at the time. Their radical love was a continual act of resistance since each of their families deeply desired to further their own traditions and cultures. In a speech at my parents' wedding, my father's boss said, quote, Tonight, we are celebrating the victory of love over cultural differences, end quote. We try our best to keep both groups of customs and traditions alive and modern and honored now. That is, that both my mother and my father, that of both my mother and my father. Unfortunately, the desire to preserve the quote purity of 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 one's peoples has led to trauma in my immediate family, influencing how I engage sometimes apologetically in the world, often not knowing where I fit or where I can claim a particular identity. The complexities of my background make it difficult to say, and past and present phobias, discrimination, biases, and gatekeeping practices of both sides of my family and activist communities make identification even more difficult and sometimes unsafe. When my father decided to tell his family about his desire to marry my mother, the conversation was difficult. My mother is neither Iranian nor Muslim, and it was thus considered scandalous by many for him to marry her. Despite the controversy, my father received his immediate family's blessing for the engagement. My grandfather assured distant relatives who were most upset by the relationship between my mother and father that my parents would raise any children they would have as Muslim, despite the fact that my father had not communicated such intentions. Shortly before the planned wedding date, my grandfather passed away due to pneumonia. Upon his death, some distant relatives blamed my father, in rumors, for supposedly causing my grandfather to die of stress by choosing to marry my mother. The resulting guilt that my father experienced led him to pressure me to inauthentically perform and code switch, for example, by not wearing a cross around my neck in front of some relatives, so that it would not be apparent that I was not Muslim.
To let you know, you've got about 4 minutes left. Okay.
I'm sure you can imagine how this might have translated into my internalization of my father's insecurities about being accepted as a family, as a member of an identity group. My dad describes himself as having a quote unquote successful life, having become a chief aerospace engineer. In addition, my dad put his children, which is myself and my sibling, through the best schooling in the quote unquote safest city. My dad is proud of having done all of this despite starting from scratch when he lost access to money from his parents and having been forced to work as a teenager in order to survive. My father believes he lived the American dream. He had a mild case of polio as a child and now walks with a mild limp. He wants to make sure I specify mild. He has been made fun of when he does not use an assistive tool that hides his foot drop. He faces barriers to socializing, even with us as a family at the dinner table, and stems in response to working through anxieties associated with his job. All of which I expect is related to neurodivergence because it reminds me of what I experienced and now understand for myself as being related to neurodivergence and madness. Neurodivergence could be understood as non-pathologized variation in the human brain, while mad or madness is a radical reclaiming of craziness. But the shame and misunderstanding and the narrative he has developed is based on his own personal experiences in having to build his life up from nothing. This makes him believe disability means just not working hard enough. He thinks that my disabled identity is a quote unquote self-fulfilling prophecy, determined by my own attitude, or that people can simply quote unquote control their mind. He believes that my diagnosis resulted from manipulating medical providers, thus, neither of us could be neurodivergent or eligible for services. We are on a journey together to challenge perspectives like this over time, but it can become quite difficult to want to continue to try due to ableism. Talila Lewis, or TL, no gender pronouns, quote, developed in community with disabled Black and other negatively racialized people, especially Dustin Gibson, end quote. January 2022 updated working definition of ableism, which follows. Defined as, quote, a system of assigning value to people's bodies and minds based on societally constructed ideas of normalcy, productivity, desirability, intelligence, excellence, and fitness. These constructed ideas are deeply rooted in eugenics, anti-Blackness, misogyny, colonialism, imperialism, and capitalism. This systemic oppression that leads to people and society determining people's value based on their culture, age, language, appearance, religion, birth, or living place, quote unquote, health or wellness, and or their ability to satisfactorily reproduce or produce, quote, excel and quote, behave. And you do not have to be disabled to experience ableism. But despite the experiential examples of ableism, why would we even want to go through inaccessible systems to access services when those very services don't account for people like us and don't account for the medical racism and medical gaslighting we experience? By medical racism, I mean racism within the medical system. By medical gaslighting, I mean dismissal and criticism of a patient's symptoms by medical providers. We're out of time, but the rest of the paper I had at the header. Now let's talk about these questions as they relate to my experiences in education. And then I had the header, clinical experiences working with disabled people. And then I have the header, being a disabled worker. And that's it. Thank you all so much. I won't be able to be here for the breakout sessions or the Q&A, so please feel free to email me. My email is deannayadolllahi@gmail.com. Please email me with your questions and I'll be happy to respond to you over time. And I will also put my email in the chat. Thank you so much.